Okay, we're live, but I don't know if we're live. So
Yeah, we're live.
I'm gonna check if it's started. Sometimes it takes a minute. Ooh, okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live show for the October Book Club pick. Today, we're going to be discussing Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. And before we get into that, I just want to quickly re-announce everything for November, which is the month we're in, and then December/January. In November, which is this month, like I said, we are reading Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, which is a mystery thriller. And then for December and January, we're reading These Violent Delights, which is a debut novel by Chloe Gong, and I'm super excited about this one. And if you guys want to read any of these books with the club, I do have links to the socials in the description down below, as well as all the co-hosts, socials, and the Discord for the book club. But now that I have talked about everything for this, I'm going to go ahead and let the co-hosts kind of tell you who they are, and they're also going to tell you what their favorite mystery/thriller novel at the moment is.
Do I go first?
Anyone can go first.
Ooh. Actually, can I mention, since you were talking about These Violent Delights for your club, people can get the book for $9.99 using Chanel's link because it's one of the Book of the Month choices in November. So you can get brand new hardcover for less than $10. Free
plug. Let me post the link in the chat.
I'm trying to
look for it right now.
Good looking out.
Okay, since I'm already talking, hi, I'm Cindy from Read with Cindy. I am in a fancy place to match the setting of Mexican Gothic. So it'll be a haunted little manor that I'm staying at to match the theme. I don't have a favorite mystery or thriller at the moment because I don't typically read in that genre. So I'm open to discovering recommendations. Okay, you go.
Okay. I'm Rachel. My channel is Reads with Rachel. Wow, I didn't even say my own channel name right. Oh my god. My favorite thriller, I don't read a ton of them, but I just read When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole last month. I think it was. Was it last month? Yes, it was. And I really enjoyed that one. It's a psychological thriller, and I thought that was great.
Well, I am RC. I am at NekutheBOOKlocke. One of my favorite recent thriller reads was actually a Book of the Month selection, and that was Winter Counts. It is an Indigenous American thriller, and it was set on a reservation, and it was I have this relationship with thrillers. Well, I'll get like 2/3 in, and I'm like, I don't care, and then the last third makes me realize I actually cared the entire time, and that's exactly how I felt while reading this.
I keep hearing really good things about that book, and I'm like, library, just give me the book already. I'm like so ready to strangle whoever's in charge of my Libby app. I'm like, give it to me. I'm like, just give me the book. Anyways, that was dramatic. So for the first little part of this, we are going to be in the non-spoiler section. So we're going to talk about all our ratings for the book and what we generally thought about that. And if everybody in the comment section also wants to go ahead and tell us what you rated the book and what you thought about the book, you can try to be spoiler free, but that's on you guys in the comments. So but we are going to be spoiler free. So I guess I'll go first since I'm talking already. This is so hard because when I first finished the book, I was like 5 stars. And then I thought about it, and I was like 4.5. And then I thought about it even more, and I was like 4. And then I was like, okay, I'm not letting it get any lower because I can't. So I was like, shut off your brain. So I'm giving the book 4 stars. That's my final. I'm not changing or rely. I'm just kidding. No, I give the book 4 stars.
I gave it 4 as well.
Yeah, I also gave it 4 stars, but I think I feel like my opinion should be taken with a grain of salt because I would be curious to hear like what people who actually read the horror genre like more often would think about that, and people who are like more knowledgeable about like the history of eugenics and history of like colonization in Mexico, because I feel like having that type of knowledge is going to be super relevant to like all the layers in the story that maybe I might have glossed over. Basically, I'm saying don't trust me.
I started it at like when I started it, it was at a 5 for me, but by the end, it was like a 4/3.75.
Wow, I can't believe you really went that low. After everything you said, after everything you initially said, how dare you go back on your opinion?
Okay. I will say those first 2/3 easily 5 stars.
Yeah, I preferred the beginning of the story way more. Like the part that made me want to lower my rating the more I thought about it was the middle, because I don't know, maybe it's because I had just finished reading Bunny and Catherine House, which were like Gothic. Well, I know that Bunny, I don't know if they classify as like Gothic horror, but both of them are like very strange books. So then going into, I don't know if you guys, I know Cindy has read Catherine House, but I don't know if you read Bunny or anything, or if anyone else has. But I just feel like those books impressed me so much that after, like, I wasn't really that grossed out or felt that weird reading Mexican Gothic because I just read all the traumatizing information from the other 2 books. So I was like, this is so light compared to those. So I don't know.
It's funny that you say that because I was reading Catherine House with you this month and a couple of other like spooky books, but I feel like out of all the books I read this past month, Mexican Gothic was my favorite one. And I think it's because I mean, I wasn't evaluating it based on like how scary it was, because I think I have like a high threshold for that kind of stuff. I was more so evaluating it based on like what the theme that the story was trying to convey. And I think the strongest parts for me about the book was like all the themes revolving around race and colonization and eugenics. Like I thought that was really cool to incorporate like real things that are happening in the world and have happened throughout history as like part of the horror rather than like an imaginary thing or a supernatural thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mexican Gothic was very unique when I compare it to like Bunny and Catherine House, which I'm like trying not to do. I feel like out of them, the most interesting one was Mexican Gothic because there was so much history to the book outside of the family and outside of what was going on. I felt like I really learned so much. Like I was Googling these mushrooms and I was like, oh my God, not the mushroom being real. I was just like so intrigued by so many aspects of the RC. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing like that? I don't know what was funny, but okay.
I'm fine.
Anyways.
I bet you if Francis heard that you were Googling all these mushrooms out of curiosity, he would feel so excited. And he'd be like, oh God, did you hear about this and this? He'd go into like a nerdy conversation with you and you guys would like bond with that.
You know what?
He's like, look at all my drawings of all these plants and mushrooms. Do you like them?
You nailed his voice. That's exactly what he sounds like.
I just hate to say this, but Francis's character,
Oh,
when he was talking about,
he makes me cringe. I'm so sorry.
oh my God.
Wait, Rachel, you don't like Francis?
No.
What?
Oh my God, Rachel, can I just say that like you are like my favorite person right now?
We got
Wow.
2 people who don't like Francis, and we got 2 people who are like Team Francis.
I'm so
What
sorry.
the heck? I cannot believe you guys. Okay, I'm gonna make my case for Francis, okay? I'm just gonna say, considering the situation he was raised in, homeboy was a good egg. Considering. Let's think about the context, sweetie. I thought he was not that bad, but
Yeah,
Francis?
You know, what I was gonna say about Francis was when he was talking about the mushrooms and the things he was interested in, they were just like I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's such boring topics, but you know when somebody's talking to you about something they care about so much, and you know you don't care, but you're still listening. I feel
It's more like
was...
it's so cute how you're passionate about something that like people don't give. Oh wait.
Not,
Sorry, I just remembered
struggling not to swear
before the show, so I'm gonna be quiet.
Cindy's like, I want to swear so bad.
I'm like,
not this PG-13 channel. No, you guys.
I forgot I was on the Disney Channel to monitor our dialogue.
This is so off topic, but it just reminds me real quick. I'm just gonna short tangent. But every single time me and Cindy would film a video together, and it would be something for my channel, she'd be like, "This," and she's like, "What's a word I can use?"
I'm like trying to go through a list of vocabulary of like regular words instead of the one I'm used to.
Oh my god. Okay, so back to Mexican Gothic. Oh my god, I see so many 3, 4s and like so many 3s and 4s. And then we have like people who gave it 2 stars, like Zach and one other person.
Oh, yeah.
I saw like one other comment from somebody who was like, I gave it 2 stars. I'm like, not you telling the world.
I read this with Angela from Blonde Books, and she gave it 5 stars. She really, really loves it.
You know what? I'm not surprised that Angela really liked it. Because I feel like we have very similar reading tastes. Because I've noticed a lot of stuff that Angela really likes, I really like. So I'm really not surprised about that. The ending was underwhelming. Yeah, I can see that. Rachel, do you want to say something, Rachel? Say it with your chest.
Francis is so cringy, and I don't understand how the end.
Yes, literally.
Literally. I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything, and I'm also trying very hard not to swear because
I'm so sorry, but I love seeing the 2 of you struggle so hard because I was like, I'm so curious to see how these 2 are going to PG-13 themselves. I was like, I want to see my faves in here.
I'm trying to find the text message. I'm trying to
leave him alone.
When I was like reading up to the ending, because I was like, wait, hold on.
I liked Francis. I'll just say it right there. I'm not gonna say I would be like the people who are creating fan art of Francis and Noemi, but I will say I did like him. I thought he was
fan art.
Okay.
Oh my god, Rachel, have you not? Cindy keeps sending fan art. I'm like, do you like him or do I like him? Pick. It can't be both of us.
I don't know why. Okay, here's the thing. Does Noemi deserve better than Francis?
Yes.
That's what we can all agree on. She's like way out of his league.
Completely.
She's way hotter than him. Her lips are like 2 times the size of his lips.
No.
And we can all agree on that. That being said, I still liked him. I think the moment that we were introduced to him, he just passed like the vibe check for me where I was like, man, I really want to trust this guy. And so I think I agree with what Chanel said, where like he was just like interested in all these wholesome things like mushrooms and drawing plants. And I just thought was cute. And he would always like drive her around. And so he was like a good chauffeur. And so I liked him from like a practical level because he really like helped her out throughout the book. And I think throughout the time, I found my text message as I was like trying to read the last few chapters. I was like updating people. I wrote, Please God, make Francis miraculously hot in the end. Only then will we have a true happy ending. Maybe it was just the house that made him ugly and thin-lipped and white. Maybe he's just a late bloomer in all caps.
Oh my God.
Point.
No.
I was like, please.
What, like his lips haven't hit puberty yet?
Yeah. I was like, please make him good and make him hot. I can't stand how Noemi keeps saying he's ugly.
Oh my God. A quick warning to everybody in the comments. We're going to get into spoilers now because I feel like we've said everything that can be said about the non-spoiler parts. So feel free to unleash yourselves. And I will go last so everyone else can get a chance to speak.
Can I go?
RC is that student in class, okay?
Okay. You know what I find funny? This story starts as a story about sisterhood and Naomi going to go save Catalina. And for the most part throughout the novel, we don't see Catalina a lot, but it makes sense. And I really liked the buildup of Francis in the first 2/3. What I don't like is how the ending of the novel, a novel that literally starts with talking about like the importance of sisterhood between these two women, ends with Catalina having like a line in like the final chapter, and then the rest of it is just like kiss, kiss, and the third kiss was for love. And I'm like, maybe during I was like, the first 2/3 I could have bought into Francis and Naomi, because Naomi going to a new place and finding a guy, that's definitely Naomi. Like that's something Evie O'Neill and Naomi have in common. They would go to a place, find a guy to like.
Now you're bringing my queen into this. Leave her alone.
Like they'll go to a place and they'll find a guy, but like my thing is that like the way that like Francis is being built up, I'm like, okay, yeah, but like in the like last third, I'm like, all of this is making me anti-Francis. Like all of it just feels like I don't like no, like this dude isn't like. And so like when it was like, and the third kiss was for love, I was like, no, why didn't this end with Naomi and Catalina being like, boom, we got out?
Okay, I'm gonna expand on that real quick.
Go ahead.
Why did Catalina do all the work in the end? Despite not speaking the whole book, she did all the work in the end? What?
I did actually like that, because she was technically the one who was most victimized by this family. So if anyone deserved it, it was her.
I agree. I like that she did all the work in the end. I just didn't like that she didn't get to speak for herself the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then did all the work in the end. Like she didn't even get like brought into these plans or these conversations. I just did not like that. On top of that, I'd just like to point out that I don't understand why Francis was the way that he was, and that added to my disgust of him.
You look like you're gonna throw up. It's so funny.
Well, the whole book, all you hear about is how pale and sickly he looks, and I'm like, oh, gross.
I just try to ignore that. I'm like,
to be honest, I had to be so honest that all the pale and sickly comments, I just pretended they weren't there. I was like, healthy king.
No, I had to pretend it was a temporary condition, and once he gets to Mexico City, he's gonna have a tan, he's gonna have lip injections, it's gonna be okay. But to what RC was saying, I definitely agree with that, where I think the book would have been more effective if the prominence of the characters that have in the story, like if that was switched between Catalina and Francis, because I think that would have just emphasized the theme more for sisterhood and misogyny, right? Because like so much of it was like not only just concentrated on like, you know, the race aspects, but it was also like specifically women of color and family. And I think that just would have been so much more effective. Like I think Francis is a good character that was like practical for like helping Noemi figure stuff out and move stuff along in the story, but he didn't need to be as prominent as he was by the end, and there didn't need to be a romance. I would have been okay with sacrificing that so that we could have more of like Catalina and have her presence more in the story.
Yeah, I agree. So my like commentary on the book is kind of in agreement with what Mina just said. My biggest issue with the middle portion was that Catalina got almost no screen time. She literally was just like in the sunken place the entire time. She was like, help me. And Noemi was like, the doctor, the lady with the cigarettes. And Francis was like, the mushrooms, the textbooks.
No, I mean, it's like, where's the spoon? Where's the spoon?
I feel like even the maid who was poisoning Catalina got more screen time. Even the maid got more. But Catalina was like, help. And I'm like, somebody. So that's why, like, when they were in whatever his Howard, when they were in Howard Doyle's room, and like Noemi was about to, you know, and then Catalina suddenly wakes up and starts stabbing. I was like, are you kidding me? She hasn't done a single thing this whole book. And now imagine the anger that must be brewing inside of you to just suddenly be like, I'm alive. Time to kill people. You know what I mean? I just feel like I know some people have talked about how Francis was like the white savior at the end of the book, but I feel like Noemi and Catalina did most of the work. Like, he was just there. Like, he literally was like a body. They were dragging him. He did nothing.
More like a corpse.
Yeah, he was literally like a corpse for like half of the entire time they were escaping. Like, they had to can you imagine pulling that man around while you're trying to save your... I'm sorry, I would leave him.
Pulling his skinny body around, his bones were cracking every time it hit him against the ground.
Not cracking.
I'm sorry, but I would not touch him without gloves on, I'll be honest.
Yeah, the whole thing was just super odd. Like, my favorite parts were just the beginning and then right before the end. Like, right before. I didn't dislike the ending because I thought after everything that's happened, I have a chance to imagine them being happy. But I will say the ending left me wanting more. Like, I wanted to see Noemi in school. Like, I think I talked about this with Rachel.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
We were like, but the master's program,
It was
the
enrollment
enrollment
to me to like see her at school after she had made it such a priority.
She did all
But
of
the
that.
last line of the book is her kissing nasty Francis and not being at school. Excuse me? I don't think
Yeah.
It wasn't even like that part, but the fact that she saw all those boils, swallowed that black sludge, and we don't get to know her thesis. I'm sorry, that's just the grad student in me. Like, I want to know what Noemi's thesis would have been. Like, can somebody tweet that at the author, please? Because I want to know what her thesis would have been on.
Dude.
Would it have been on mushrooms?
Yeah.
She's not thinking about her thesis at the moment. She's got. Oh, wait.
I'm sorry. Like, to
take
me,
care of.
like, if I was in something that traumatic, my immediate first thought afterwards, and again, it's the scarred student grad brain in me, I would be like, oh, this is a good thesis project. What's the research going to be? Like, you know what I mean? So the whole time I was just like, right there is an opportunity, sweetie. Right there.
Yeah.
There were so many books she could have snatched. Sorry, go on, Cindy.
I personally didn't mind. Well, to what you mean about like the ending not being Stan and more, because I kind of feel like it was open-ended on purpose, where the story was about like what was going on in the house and how they escaped the house. I guess a nice epilogue would have been good, but I'm okay with it being an open ending because then you can kind of like figure out for yourself what happens next, and including like whether like Francis makes it or not. To what Naomi Meyer said, an open ending.
Yeah, it was definitely an open ending, and I can see why people would be annoyed at the romance aspect of it just being like, and then they lived happily ever after with Francis and his thin lip incest body. Like, I get how that would be upsetting, but I just feel like for the family and for the kind of situation that the whole thing was in, you know what I mean? And like, even going into talking about Francis, because I know we've talked about Francis, we've talked about Noemi, we talked about Catalina and all of that, but in line with that, what was you guys' like favorite characters and the ones you hated besides Francis? How did you feel about the Doyle family? And then the people in the town, like, was there anyone that stood out to you?
I love Cigarette Lady.
Oh, she was full of stories.
She's still smoking up.
She like disappeared. was so worried about her.
I thought she was gonna come in the end. Like she was gonna like sense something. Like she was like, "Oh, it's time to finally destroy this house." But like then she like did it, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, my favorite character was Noemi. I thought she was really funny. She made me laugh out loud, and I just loved her making fun of them for their incest. Like she just like at home how disgusting they were, and I loved her for that.
What I love so much, and Chanel pointed this out, and it made me laugh so much. It's the moment when Naomi sees those like portraits, and she's like, "Oh, are those your sisters?" And he's like, "Those are my wives."
And he's like, "Oh."
Not Cindy disappearing. Hello, can you go?
He's like,
hello,
Catalina, where are you? Catalina.
It's the spoon for
I don't
me.
know what to do.
Dude, oh my god, this is so random, but one of the people I hated the most, like, okay, everybody hates Virgil, right? We all know everybody despises, but I could not stand Howard Doyle. Like, I could not, from the moment when he met Noemi and he was like, he said something about Mexican people, or like something about, he was like, your people or something. Hold on, I can find it. Y'all can talk about something else while I find it.
I'll answer the character's question. So to what you're saying about Howard Doyle, I definitely knew that he was going to play some nasty role in the story, because it's like that kind of setting where there's like an old white dude who's like kind of dying. And then there's like people of color around. I know, like, he's like trying to harvest their organs or like trying to take their soul or something so that he can be alive again. I feel like that's a very common thing in horror stories. My favorite character was Noemi, because I really liked how she did remind me of Evie O'Neill, with like how she was like a flippant party girl, and she had like kind of like a flighty personality, but I liked that because it was just nice to see that contrasted with how like rigid the Doyles were. And you could also tell that she was still like, you know, really smart. I like that throughout the whole time that she's like navigating what's going on, she chooses her words very carefully when she's talking to like the other family members. And she's kind of like, she knows when to be careful and when to like guard herself. And I like that she uses common sense that way, because I feel like it would have been very easy for her to be a caricature, for her to be like, no, I'll do whatever I want, I'm a party girl. But she was like, she knew like, I can't step out of line or else they're not going to listen to me. So she just had a good head on her shoulders. And I agree to the earlier comment about how she was like attracted to Virgil. I just ignored that. I was like, nope, does not exist to me.
Yeah, so I found the part where Howard Doyle comes into the story for the first time, and it was the part, I don't know if you guys have your books, if you want to open it, I don't care, but I'm just going to let you know it's on page 29, and it's just the part where Howard comes in and he's like, oh, you're much darker than your cousin, and that's like the first thing he says to Noemi, and she's like, she's like, excuse me, and he's like, your coloration is much darker than your cousin. It must be your Indian heritage. And she's like, I'm Oaxacan. And he's like, your people. I was like, not you coming to Mexico to build an entire fortress and you don't know what Oaxacan people are. Like, that's just embarrassing. That was just the worst for me. The fact that the first thing he noticed about her was that she was darker than her cousin. Yeah. I was like, this is disgusting. Do some research, sir. If you're going to plant your white domination incest family here, do something to learn a little bit.
I loved that part where Noemi was looking around and she found the Eugenics journal and she just threw it away. I was like, big ol'.
She's like, no.
For you.
Yeah, I know some people in the comments were talking about how they were like grossed out at Noemi being attracted to Virgil. And I don't think she was attracted to him. First of all, I do agree with the person who said that he's manipulative and he's a very, I don't want to use the word good representation, but he's a representation of an abusive man who has been raised to have power because his ego has been fueled from so many different areas. But I don't think Noemi was attracted to Virgil. I think it's partly the mushrooms and then partly, like, I feel like this is just my belief with people. Everybody has some evil thing at their core that they know they shouldn't like or shouldn't want to be around or shouldn't want to explore, but they have that. Like, everybody has that one thing that's like, oh, that ain't my corner, but and I feel like that was the case with Noemi, where it was Virgil is disgusting and he's gross, but the mushrooms are feeding off of that aspect of her that wants to be, I don't know how to explain it, but I hope that makes sense.
I get what you mean.
I get it.
Yeah. So I don't think she was like, oh, Virgil. No.
Yeah, it felt like it was strongly the house, because even when like she first meets him, it isn't like, oh damn, Catalina really got a hot one. It's like, oh hey, there's Virgil.
Yeah,
she was like,
you could tell from the very beginning that his vibe was just off. Like I saw him as ugly since the moment he was introduced because I saw him for who he was on the inside. Yeah, okay, so it kept on being emphasized that like that he's handsome, and I'm like, no.
I think the thing is, though,
I don't accept it.
I know that, Cindy, I think you sent the post that the author made about like Frances actually being attractive and Noemi just being like, oh, he's not attractive because she was like fighting her attraction to him. But to go off of that, I feel like Virgil's handsomeness is just like, people can be conventionally attractive, like
that's what I was gonna
objectively say. Attractive. Like you can see someone and be like, oh, they're attractive. And that can be it. Like, I feel like recognizing that someone's attractive doesn't mean you're attracted to them. Yeah. So I feel like that's the thing with Virgil, where when Noemi saw him, because she obviously said when she saw him, like, he looks way better than everybody else in the town. Like, he dresses like he comes from money, whereas everybody else in the town looks like they're literally tattering and breaking up into pieces. You know what I mean? So I think that was the situation.
I think you can also be conventionally attractive but still look creepy. And I think that's how I picture him. Like someone else would think, oh, he's so hot, but I just look at him and I'm like, no, he's so creepy and sickly looking in a different way, sick in a different way. So you were mentioning earlier about how like Howard had made that comment about how she's darker than they expected. And I feel like that kind of served as like two things. One, which is to show how low-key microaggressive they are. And then two was like, it kind of has a double meaning when you find out like what they wanted to use Noemi for as well. And maybe another thing could be like the way that they view her body as like exotic. So there's like this, even with like the gross attraction between Virgil and Noemi, like I think the reason why that is so creepy is because it's like this desire for like a brown body that I think like it's just, I just think there's layers to it. And I think that's why like out of all the nightmares that she has, like I wasn't scared by like any of the other stuff that happened, but once he shows up, I'm just like so repulsed by it because like that's the kind of stuff that can happen in real life.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree because it's just interesting that darker bodies, darker people are sexualized, but at the same time looked down on because it's like, oh, this dark, juicy brown chocolate skin tone, but also bottom of the tool, bottom of the ladder, honey, for you. So, like, I just think I'm laughing, but it's not funny at all. It's painful, really. So,
yeah, I think like the way that they try to preserve their whiteness, but at the same time, they need to use people like Catalina and Noemi is like a way how there's like this juxtaposition between like being disgusted at like this darker skin, but also this desire for the darker skin as well. So I feel like there's a lot of parallels to just like how we are sociologically, that I really appreciated.
Yeah. Somebody said something about the Spanish speaking, and I think this is an interesting thing to discuss about the book, especially when you think about how Francis was the only person in the family who spoke Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just ties into how they were trying to preserve whiteness. And it just adds on to the theme of colonization. What I did like was how the fact that she was able to speak Spanish is like, she's able to use that to her advantage. And like Francis also knowing how to speak Spanish, like by them being able to communicate with each other, like, and the others not understanding it, like that's what helps them ultimately. So I kind of liked how just knowing that language was like, you're one of the good guys if you.
Yeah. I think that's one of the parts. Like when he was talking to Noemi and she was like, oh, why do you speak Spanish and the rest of the family does it? And he was like, I think he started talking about his father, and then he was talking about how his Spanish, he continued using Spanish because he was the only person who could read the documents that they would get. So, and then when he went out into the city for things, he was the only person who could like properly communicate with everyone. So I just thought it was interesting that he was like, well, why not? Like, I speak the language, so I might as well continue using it. Whereas the rest of his family was like, whiteness only, English, tea. I don't know what British people. Sorry to the British people.
Well, like something that I find really fascinating about the like Spanish aspect in the novel is the fact that, I mean, Spanish itself is a white language. It's the language that was used by the colonizers, and that's why these people use the language. But now this white family is here and they look down on it because they don't see it as a white language. They see it as other. So they're like, ew, we won't like use that. And it's really funny to me because it's literally a language that was used by white colonizers. It is like whiteness itself and what it represents there. But they look down on it because they're like, oh no, this is clearly what it is. Like, it's been sullied. It's used by these people. We can't use that. And I think that was like a good aspect of it too, because it just shows kind of the hypocrisy that these white people have in this family.
Yeah. To go like on the route of this comment that Ace put on here, I think it's really interesting because I did get a lot of Get Out vibes from this book because of, you know, like how I mentioned earlier, Catalina kind of felt like she was trapped in the sunken place. And then like Noemi showing up and all of them being like, we don't like you, but we want to use your body. I don't know if you guys have watched Get Out, but the part where they're like, we don't like Black people, but like, we want to put ourselves in you guys because that's the new trend. So that's kind of how it reminded me of how they wanted Noemi's body for their purpose, but they didn't value her as a person. So
that was what kind of tipped me off the moment that we are introduced to Howard as like this old kind of like low-key dying old dude, because Get Out has just made me hyper aware of that kind of stuff. So like when I read, like I also read Lock Every Door, which has like a similar theme, but not quite about race.
Man, I just got flashbacks.
But like it had a similar theme where like there were really old dying people, and you're like, you know that they're gonna try to use marginalized people for their own advantage in some way. So it's kind of like them physically doing it is like symbolic of how like the rich white people do that metaphorically in real life.
Yeah, it's definitely like super interesting. But what scenes in the book stuck out to you guys, good or bad? Like, what scenes did you feel like, oh, I love this scene, or like, oh, I'm so angry I could toss a book? Rachel's gonna be like, the ending, the very last two lines.
No, the scene that stuck out to me was the Howard throwing up in her mouth scene.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was so nasty.
Yep.
I had to rewind, like, because I was doing this physically and audio, but this was around the time when I was making myself like a quick snack, and I had to rewind because I was like, did I just hear this right? And then I was like, I'm not hungry anymore.
Dude, like, I was still high. I don't know if I can say that on your channel, Chanel. Okay. So I took an edible over the weekend, and I was still on my high while I was listening to the audiobook. And I got to that part where Howard was like, And I'm listening to it like under the influence, and I'm like, oh,
Dude, you need to watch Lala's vlog. When she did that, she was out of it. It was so funny. I was like, Lala, is everything okay? You need to watch because she did that, and then she was reading books in the vlog, and I was like, girl. And that's how I picture you reading this book.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I I went to a park and I lied down on the grass and I just listened to the audiobook while he was like, and I was just like, whoa.
Not the whoa. RC, what about you?
I honestly think one of my favorite parts, like not one, but like my favorite parts, other than like when Naomi was being like awesome, was the Ruth parts. I really liked the Ruth story and learning everything about that. And then also how Ruth was kind of like also present, like in the like house, like in the mold, basically. And I really liked that. And I liked how Ruth was like the first one to try to like end all of this. But it obviously didn't work.
Dude, the moment that they talked about Ruth, like when we were introduced to Ruth and how she just like killed everybody, I was like, she probably has a good reason for it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know who she is, but I trust her.
Yeah, my favorite scene, honestly, of the book was, which kind of makes me sad because then we didn't see him again, was the beginning with her dad, like when she was talking to her dad and he was like, you can go to college or whatever. It just made me think a lot because I feel like based off of the beginning, like Noemi has a good relationship with her father, but at the same time, you can tell that they're probably the type of people who argue a lot. And that just made me think about my dad because I was like, oh, love him, but let's fight. Fight. It's fighting time. But like, I don't know. That was like my favorite scene. And then the scene that I hated the most was the black puke. That whole scene where we saw Howard's boils because like people just were telling me so much. The mushrooms, like this book is gonna ruin mushrooms for you.
Yeah,
blah,
I got
blah,
that too.
But I don't get it. Like it made me want to see what other mushrooms exist. I was like, this is interesting. And okay, I hate to say this, but a lot of times reading the book, I was eating my meals. And I didn't feel some type of way. I still was eating my meals in hunger. I was like, oh, I'm still hungry. Let's get it.
Yeah, I made mushroom pasta. And I was like, oh, this is tying along with Mexican Gothic.
Not mushroom. Cindy's like, I wonder if these are the glow-in-the-dark mushrooms. She's like, I wonder if these are the mushrooms they put in the walls to make them hallucinate. Delicious.
To be honest, I kind of wish I did shrooms while reading this book.
Oh my god.
It's totally like new layer of experience.
Somebody lock up the Bay Area folks.
I kind of wish we did too. Shoot.
They've taken it too far.
I don't know. We want to go in with a theme of it.
You know what? 2021 BookCon, I'm dressing as a giant mushroom.
I love it. Ooh, and I'll be Francis and I'll chase after you.
No.
No.
I think one of the most memorable scenes for me was when she, like, her dreams started incorporating Virgil more, specifically the one where she is in a bathtub, you know, and she kind of like drifted off and then you saw him like come up and then start to kiss her. That's like the first time that there's like something physical between them. Yeah. And I think that's what like was most memorable to me, because by the time you read the other stuff, like you got used to it already, but then the first time you're like, oh, what is going on? And then when she sees him later, like in person, and you don't know like is what's happening in the dream like actually real or not, like I think that's like super scary compared to like the previous nightmares that she's gotten. Yeah. The worst nightmare is men. That's the lesson here.
Yeah.
That's the scariest part.
To answer Ace's question, I think it was Alice that that was the whole book. Agnes. Yeah. It was it was one of the A's. It wasn't Ruth. It was one of the A's, one of his sisters.
Yes.
I did like that because it felt like all of the women outside of like Francis's mother all seemed to have bad blood with the family and all wanted to see it end and were being used. And I liked the fact that Francis's mother seemed to be the only woman in the family who was very much for it, because it felt like a very good representation of like someone who kind of.
It's internalized misogyny.
Yes.
That's exactly what it was.
Like, that's literally how it felt. And I was like, that commentary, like, it's the things like that work so well for me. Like, everything that had to do with that. And like,
I agree.
It was so, yeah.
And since you were speaking about like the themes of misogyny in the book, I kind of wonder if the book would have been like, if we were going to have a Francis type of character and that role, would it have been more impactful if he were like a female character instead, because of how she doesn't quite fit in? Like, this person wouldn't quite fit in with the rest of the family and they both escape. I don't know. That's just something I wonder, but I also might be biased because I'm like, ooh, it would only be better if it were gay.
No, you're right, because like I said, we don't know why Francis was the way he was. He has absolutely no reason to, I mean, he's in a position where he can be in a position of power. So why does he not want that?
Yeah.
And mom didn't teach him any different, and she lives in this bubble of internalized misogyny. So why does he feel any different? He allowed this to happen to Catalina. Why is he suddenly like, oh, Noemi's here, I'll be different this time? Why? If he it would have been.
I wish there was a more thought out explanation for why that happened, or like why that was the case.
If he were a woman, it would make sense, because he'd be like, well, I'm whoa.
Gosh darn it. Gosh darn it.
I literally screamed. Rachel, go on. Not you hiding.
In a delicate, precarious position here, being a woman, would Francis have said, oh man, whew.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how the women in the book were like discussed and portrayed. And I was going to ask you guys, like, how did you relate to the way women or like minorities or marginalized groups were talked about in the book? Because I know they did talk about the workers for quite like in many different places in the book. So what did you guys think about that? Language.
I think that the theme was that bodies to these people were just vessels to do whatever they wished to do.
Yeah.
And that was really like the big theme. So the servants, they were vessels. Catalina, she was a vessel. Noemi, future vessel. Agnes, she was the ultimate number one vessel. So I thought that was really interesting. I liked that. That was my favorite part. That's probably why the book got 4 stars from me, was that whole theme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what I would take out of the story, if anything.
I think to that comment about how Francis saw the harm of the system, this is what I was trying to figure out, what his role in the story was supposed to be and why he had to be specifically a good character rather than like betraying Noemi. And I almost wonder if his character is there to show, I don't know, to make you question, like, is it possible to break out of a system that is so like toxic and full of all this long-standing tradition of doing all these awful things? Like, are white men capable of being good? Because I feel like I started wondering if that was his role, because towards the end he was saying like he was telling Noemi that he was really afraid that he was going to like morph into, you know, something horrible. And so it's kind of like a bit of nature versus nurture for me, with us questioning, like, is he capable of being like a good person, or is the fact that he was born in this horrible family going to make him like inevitably like gross and not a good person, no matter what?
Yeah.
Honestly, like when it came to Francis and his role, I think like something that could have made me feel like more like that he was being more proactive in trying to separate himself from the family is if we had found out that part of the reason Catalina had been able to send that letter, or like Catalina had made it this far, had been that Francis had been intervening behind the scenes the whole time. Because I think that would have helped sell it more than just as soon as Naomi shows up, then Francis is like, maybe I can change.
Yeah.
And so like, because his dad does represent this like idea that he doesn't have to be what he is, but at the same time, if you choose differently, you can be punished. But I think it would have been interesting to have that fold to it if you had it like behind the scenes. The only thing being that he didn't realize that Catalina's letter was going to cause another woman to come who could potentially be another vessel for this family.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Were there any things that, like, quotes or things that people said in the book that really, like, stood out to you?
I have them highlighted. Let me go into my Kindle app.
And everyone else in the comment section as well can leave any, if there are any that stood out for you.
I liked this quote where Noemi was thinking, a woman who is not liked is a B.
Yeah.
And a B can hardly do anything. All avenues are closed to her.
Yeah.
I think that's what made me like appreciated her as a character, because it's realistic for, you know, someone like her to still be mindful of like her behavior, or like extra vigilant of her behavior and the way that she like approaches the other people in the house. Because sometimes like you can't afford to just go guns blazing and just do whatever you want. You have to be strategic with the way that you show yourself in the type of society that you're in. Someone asked, where is that quote? I listened to it on audiobook, so I don't know what the page number is. Sorry.
I want to say it was.
Oh yeah, I actually have the same quote highlighted, and it's on page 58.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm like, our minds. I guess if everyone else is still looking, I have two. So the first one I have is on page 11, and it says, but it isn't like you should have to make up your mind about everything at 22. And I was like, is that me? Because like, I'm 22, and I feel like I change my mind all the time about stuff. Like one day I'll be like, oh, I love having a YouTube channel. And then the next day I'm like, the delete button looking real juicy right now. And so it's moving to New Zealand and becoming, I don't know, like a grass counter. Just every day I'm like, something's going to change. So I really love that quote. And then another one that I saw that I thought was really interesting was the one that said, a woman's function is to preserve the family line. And I just thought that that really speaks to how this book just used the female body and how they just saw women as like a tool for furthering their incestuous plans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the ones that I really loved. Well, I didn't love the second one, but that stood out. I did not love that one. Okay.
Oh no, Chanel's becoming Florence.
Well, not me being Florence. I'm like, time to help out, I guess.
This is one of my favorite quotes, and it's, marriage could hardly be like the passionate romances one read about in books. It seemed to her, in fact, a rotten deal. Men would be solicitous and well-behaved when they courted a woman, asking her out to parties and sending her flowers. But once they married, the flowers wilted. You didn't have married men posting love letters to their wives.
Cindy and RC took both mine. I just want to call out the thievery here.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Rachel. I have like 25 things highlighted. I could have selected anything.
Rachel, that's called reverse colonialism. So
You're right. Actually, I deserve it.
I'm so sorry, Rachel.
No, I'm just joking. I mean, they speak to that whole theme of women are lesser, and yeah, so those obviously were going to be the ones that I, had picked, because that's like the thing that I enjoyed about the book was talking about how much women aren't valued.
Yeah, this is interesting because I didn't even think about that.
If Noemi's dad had went there instead, they wouldn't have made it out.
Yeah, no, the dad would have died. I 100% believe that.
It takes a woman to get the job done.
What would
you like not? I feel like if the dad had gone, so many things that Noemi did would not have happened for sure. Like her going to the cigarette lady and like getting stories from her and offering her a cigarette, and like her going to the doctor. Like I feel like her dad would have just been like, well, you are a doctor, so I guess I'm heading back home.
Yeah, like nothing would have happened. I found a quote where Noemi said, "So I'll be wed in the church of the holy incestuous."
Yes.
Oh my god, I remember that.
I love that.
I remember that, and I was like,
Dude, it's so funny how she was so disgusted by like all the incest going on, because you could tell she was thinking like, oh, white people.
yeah. And then she was like, Francis. That's the only thing that makes above like.
No, she's trying to dilute the nasty genes.
I don't know.
That's
like,
why
when I think about it,
up because she's gorgeous. So hopefully it'll cancel out his genes.
It's gross.
To make a comment on like the dad side of the things, I almost feel like he sent her intentionally, because up until this point he has a very good idea of who Naomi is. She goes through whatever she wants, like does whatever she pleases. Like she's a very headstrong woman who gets what she wants. And I feel like he sends her because, one, she was like Catalina's confidant and Catalina was her confidant. But two, if you had sent a man to this family, I feel like they would have felt a lot like someone was intruding a lot more than if you send a woman, because they'll be like, oh, well, it's just a woman. What is she going to do? But like her dad knows the kind of woman that Catalina is. And when she sets her mind to something, she does not stop until she gets it.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting, though, that the whole time Francis was like, I can't leave the house. Because, I mean, honestly, he is part of the whole entire thing. And then he was like, I can't leave the house. But then he like survived. Like I honestly thought he would die. So I was like waiting for him to die.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna like turn into like a shrivelly old dude, like once they like got off the grounds, like as time went on. Like maybe his body was just gonna like, but then he was just fine.
Isn't that what the open ending is for, though? Like you don't know if he's gonna get sicker or if he's gonna get better.
That's true. Honestly, I think he probably died.
Yeah,
I just don't see him surviving something.
No, I think he gets a tan in Mexico City.
Oh, here we go. Catalina and Naomi bring up his style. They make him so much more attractive.
He goes to the gym more often.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, like what do you guys in the comments think will happen? What do you guys think will happen to Francis? Rachel, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, I was just making fun of him some more. It's fine.
I feel like he's going to be fine in the hospital for like a week or two. And then after they decide to leave the hospital, he's going to get sick because he hasn't really been outside much. Like really, he hasn't even eaten non-disgusting food. So I feel like his body is going to literally reject maybe like a mango. Like he might possibly eat a mango and pass out, and that will be the end of it.
Maybe when he steps out of the hospital, he'll get like skin burned from the sun because he hasn't been in the sun in a while. And then when you like peel off your sunburn, like that's just like his only layer of skin because he's so like skinny. And then he'll just wither away into the wind.
I'll imagine the pain. I don't even go out into the sun. So I'm like, I'll shrivel up inside.
See, like
oh, that's a wholesome ending.
For somebody who gave the book 2 stars, Zach is pretty optimistic.
I was about to say that's pretty wholesome. Actually, the fan art that I saw.
Oh my god! That's what he's gonna make you a meal and he's gonna die.
I was gonna say like he's gonna eat a burrito and he's gonna be like, "What is this? This is too spicy." And Naomi and Catalina are gonna be like, "You didn't even put your hot sauce yet." Like
the first time that he goes to the toilet after he eats the burrito, it's over for him.
He will turn into soup and get flushed.
I just don't think yeah, exactly. I just don't think Francis is going to survive. I think he's one ethnic meal away from passing out and dying forever. I just don't think he's going to make it past the mushroom pasta. Like, Noemi's going to make him one good meal, and that's going to be the end.
It's going to be his last meal.
So, that's just what I'm seeing there, which is
sad.
Wow. And then Noemi's going to have to do her thesis on the benefits.
The benefits of growing up with tamales.
She's gonna do her thesis on the benefits of glowing mushrooms. All right. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to add before the live show ends, or anyone in the comments who wants to say anything else? Oh, also, I forgot to say our live show for Gone Girl is going to be December 5th at 5 p.m. EST. I think that's a Saturday. But yeah, I'll announce it also on the Discord and stuff like that. But he is not Edward. Yeah. I don't think the co-hosts have anything to add, and I can't think of anything else to say. I feel like for how short this book was, like it's like
You
200
tapped a lot.
Dude, I have post-its in here.
Wow, you did
Like,
tap a lot.
Post-its. There was so much to say. The end heavily hinted his death. Yeah, I agree. I feel like the
Dang.
end was like he's 99.9% going to die. So
That is something I
That's
do
kinda
like
sad.
about the ending, though, because it is very open-ended. Most things point to the fact that he's gonna die, but there is
Mhm.
still some stuff that can support that he might be able to live, and that is something that I do like about the ending, even if I don't like the ending itself.
Yeah, it's
There
like
are-
it's up to you.
Yeah.
Like what you make from it. And I like endings like that where like you can
Yes.
kind of fill in the rest from there. And I wonder maybe that's why there was no epilogue where you get to see, you know, where she's going to school and her thesis and everything,
They
because
would give you
then that
answers.
would have answered the questions about Francis's fate, and that would have taken away like the mystery of what happens to them next.
Yeah. I think this book overall makes me more excited to get into this author's works because
Same.
I don't know why I've heard so many like just 3-star style opinions about the author's books, but I just feel like their writing is just so good. Like the writing was what really did it for me in this book. Like I didn't really care that much about the plot or anybody that wasn't Noemi, but the writing, like for once, I was like, the writing is what's keeping me here.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think she's a really smart author, so I'm definitely interested to seeing like her future works. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to check out the Hulu show. I have this one random question because someone had mentioned the doctor. Does anyone know why the doctor kept on being described as like, I don't know, just like his little mustache and like he was like so not impressive at all? Like, was there any reason for that?
I don't know.
I guess like maybe it was supposed to show like the difference between like the pasty white family and then like people in the like city, like to like make them seem like they're very kind of like grounded and normal people. Because like the only person in the whole city who even seemed to have like an eccentricness to them was Cigarette Lady. Like everyone else like kind of was described as just being poor or normal. Whereas then you have like this like white family that borders on being like creepy to creepy and handsome to creepy and a terrible person.
All right. That calls it at the end of this live show. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us and also for the co-hosts for being here. Make sure you guys check out all of the links that I have in the description and their channels and everything. I don't have anything else to say, but do you guys have anything else to say? No?
I would love to see a romance spin-off of Ugo because he sounded kind of hot.
I would like a Catalina spinoff.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like that.
Catalina Sapphic spin-off.
Yes.
I would like to know what Mexican Gothic would look like if it were gay. Like if Frances had been a girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would have been even more interested in the book.
Agreed.
Hopefully we get something like this that does have such things. Because I'd be like, Arc? All right. That's the end of the live show. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next month for Gone Girl. Bye.
Bye.